Our third presenter is Imam Abdullahi Shuaib, and his paper is Towards Achieving Ethno-Religious Peaceful Coexistence in Nigeria.
Thank you, the moderator, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all of us, and may the peace of the Almighty God abide with us. I will now want to follow the pattern of the discussion by repeating what most of the earlier speakers have actually mentioned, which I have actually also captured in the paper I'm going to discuss. So I will try as much as possible to just touch those areas that the earlier speakers have not actually touched, so that we don't keep us here longer than the time expected of us. Quickly, let me just say that today, in the last few years, Islamic religion has been on the front burner of contemporary discourse. And we have found so many people actually having misunderstanding of the Islamic religion and its teachings. We look at it from different perspectives based on our personal or individual or collective experiences, and from that, we jump to conclusion. I recall one of the early Muslims, Rivers, who was an European man, later converted to Islam, by name Muhammad Hassad. He wrote a book which he titled Islam at a Crossroad. In that book, he gave a very graphic experience he had. And what was the experience? He said he thanked, in the summary of the book, he said, I thank God that I met Islam first before I met the Muslims. What is the meaning of this? The picture we are seeing today in the world is that quite a number of people have not had the opportunity of meeting Islam first, but they had the opportunity of meeting Muslims first. And when they look at the attitude of such Muslims, they now use it to now, describe Islam, which might not give us a true picture, just like Muhammad Hassad said in his book. And that has made quite a number of people to have a misunderstanding of what Islamic religion is all about. If you look at what the Quran says in chapter 5, verse 32, it's very clear. Islam, places high premium on human life. It holds human life as sacred. It says, we ordain for the children of Israel that he who slays a soul, unless it be in punishment for murder or spreading mischief on earth, shall be as if he had slain all mankind. And he who saves a life shall be as if he had given life to all mankind. This is a very clear scriptural text from the Quran, which places high premium on the sacredness of human life. Next slide, please. Quite a number of my colleagues have spoken on the history of ethno-religious conflict in Nigeria, and I quite appreciate the speaker who came before me, giving us a very clear picture. Now, in Nigeria, when we talk of ethno-religious crisis, it is not everything that has to do with religion. Quite so many of them had to do with, with political, struggle for political power, struggle for land, struggle for, having a fair share of the resources. Maybe because the actors involved are coming from different religious backgrounds. Therefore, such clashes or crises later, wear the gap of religion. And two things are very, very sensitive in Nigeria. That is ethnicity and religion, which most of the political leaders usually capitalize on, depending on which side of the divide they belong to actually pursue their personal or collective interests. I just want to recall briefly, in the late 90s, when the issue of the Sharia came on board, quite a number of people do not really understand what actually informed it. The issue of Sharia that came on board was not purely for religious purpose. It was purely for political actualization of the interests of the political actors. And I could also recall that the former president of our country, President Olusegun Obasanjo, just said, he said, if indeed it is the Sharia that we are all thinking about, time will tell. But if it is the political Sharia, time will tell. And what actually happened? After quite a number of years, it later manifested that it was not the real Sharia that people were actually afraid of that actually was in vogue, but it was the political Sharia. Because most of the northern states, particularly the 11 northern states in Nigeria, felt that if they don't follow suit in introducing Sharia, those who were contesting will likely fail, will not win. So it was like, if I don't do it, I will not have an edge over my political opponent. And fortunately for us, we have seen that the zeal with which they all came on board has actually whittled down today in Nigeria. Having said that, I also want to just mention quickly that the current one that is ravaging our country, which is the Boko Haram. Boko Haram is just another name for the earlier ethno-religious crisis that we have actually witnessed. In Nigeria today, when we look at the history of the Boko Haram, up to where it is not only the Christians that are victims. Quite a large number of Muslim clerics have been killed, have been murdered. But unfortunately, because if you look at Nigeria today, the media houses, most of the media houses we have in Nigeria are situated in the southwest axis of Nigeria. So when Boko Haram, maim and kill most of these religious leaders up north, we hardly hear about it, except those who are very prominent, like maybe the Sultan, like maybe the late Ado Bayero, and quite a number of these traditional leaders who are very famous. But quite a number of religious leaders had been killed by this same Boko Haram sect. And the question we ask is, these are small rascals that were used by the political leaders in the northeast Nigeria when they wanted to go for their second term, which usually is always associated with what? With violence. Because if they had not been able to deliver dividend of democracy to their people, the tendency for them to come back is very slim. The only way they can come back is to create political upheavals, crises. So in the course of the crisis, they capitalize to sustain their hegemony. That was how Boko Haram started. They were equipped with all necessary weapons by the political actors. But when they got back to power, there was a kind of a fallout of association between them and those in power. And they felt, you cannot at this particular stage in time abandon us or fail to recognize us. So they had to, react violently. And today, we all know the history. These were people who were rascals, but today they are controlling sophisticated weaponries. The question is, where have they been able to get the resources to buy these weaponries? They don't have access to it. If there are no political juggernauts behind them, they cannot have access to such weapons that even make a whole security forces in Nigeria, to become so helpless in the face or in the hands of these people. And unfortunately for us, like we used to say, what is deepening this ethno-religious crisis is the way government is going all about it. One, we have there so many crises that each time we have this crisis, government will set up a panel of either inquiry, either administrative or judicial. They will sit for months, spend a lot of resources, going from one area to the other. At the end of the day, they will submit reports, recommendations. We have not seen government, not just this present government, successive government in the past, have not been able to muster the political will to implement those recommendations. And this is one of the causes of deepening the ethno-religious crisis we are having in the country. If government had demonstrated the will by implementing those recommendations, by bringing the culprits to book, and we can see them clearly, we have no doubt in our mind whatsoever that the crisis we have witnessed from time immemorial till date would have ceased. But because governments usually have a way of dodging it for political reasons, it has assisted in deepening this ethno-religious crisis. And lastly, before I look at my recommendation, is in the area of lack of internal democracy within all the political parties in Nigeria. Because most of these political parties claim that they are democratic, even though they have been classified as conservative and the progressive. Either we belong to the conservative or the progressive, there is an absence of internal democracy. And when there is an absence of internal democracy, what do we expect to find in the larger society? But what we usually have is imposition of candidates. And when that continuously occurs, people will feel disenchanted, people will feel shortchanged, people will feel, the grievances are already bottled up, and the only way through which they can express themselves is to utilize ethnicity and religion by playing on the emotion and the sentiment of their people, and before we know it, there is a conflagration. And this has actually deepened the ethno-religious conflict that we have witnessed. However, in my own little way of contribution, let's go to the recommendation straight ahead. Yes. 1, I'm recommending that there should be a human right-based approach to the protection of religious freedom in Nigeria. What we have seen over the years is that, yes, in the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution, Section 38, subsection 1 and 2, says there is religious freedom. But the provision of this Constitution is very weak, such that we have seen in many instances where people's religious right to free association, to free worship has been curtailed, either from the Christian side, or either from the Muslim side, or either from the traditional religious groups. All have been victims. So there is need for all and sundry to ensure that we adopt a human rights-based approach towards the protection of religious freedom. Secondly, the issue of religious tolerance and accommodation of opposing view is one of the recipes that can bring about peaceful coexistence. There is no way that we can all see an issue from the same perspective. Even Almighty God in the Quran says it. He says it clearly, that if he had will, he would have made the whole world to just believe in the same way of thinking. But he said he has not done that because he has given us the faculty of reasoning, the faculty of assimilation, of processing things. So the way we see things, differs. And therefore, if our religious leaders, our political leaders could muster the strength and preach the gospel of religious tolerance and accommodation of opposing views among our people, it will go a long way in dousing the tension and the conflict that we have been seeing over the years. Thirdly, somebody has actually mentioned this in one of the speakers that spoke, the issue of improving the human capital development of our people. Our country has the resources to train its citizenry, even without going to anywhere. But because of politics, of stomach infrastructure, which is the current, lexicon in Nigeria today, when election is approaching, I give you money, I give you a bag of rice, bag of beans, and put a token there. The moment you collect it, you forget that there is no any structure on ground until maybe after 2 or 3 years, then you begin to start feeling that, oh, these people, they have actually deceived us. So there is need to invest adequately on education. Most of our universities are always prone to crisis, to strikes. And when strikes occur, for months, students are at home doing nothing. Idle and is the devil's workshop, so says so many people. When you are idle, you are not active, the tendency is there for you to want to do what? To survive. And when you are lured by peer groups into acts that are unholy, you say it is because of the drive to survive. So there is need to ensure that we improve the human capital development of our people so that they are taught, modern ways of resolving conflicts, and also shown the way things or crises are, to be resolved among the conflicting parties. And fourthly also is that the religious leaders as well as the political leaders should also try as much as possible to, spread the message of genuine friendship and love and stop this message of hatred, incitement. I recall just recently, after the political confab that was held in Nigeria, which was informed by our drive to want to reposition our country, one of the participants who represented, a religious body in Nigeria, at the end of the conference came out and started circulating a video, a DVD, CD to quite a number of people. If you watch the CD, I've heard it and I've seen it, it's full of hatred, incitement of a particular section of a society against the other. Such things will never bring about development in our community, but rather it will deepen the hatred, it will deepen animosity, it will deepen rancor among our people. And this is not going to augur well for our community. And sixthly is the issue of the media houses. We respect the media houses because without them, whatever we are doing here will not go far. But they have a responsibility in the way they report events. Constant reporting of events from the negative perspectives usually send a wrong signal to those who are receiving such informations. If we must build a nation and we must hold our people together, there should be a lot of responsibility in the way in which we report events the way they are, so that people will not, be misguided by the information that we pass out. And lastly is in the area of both secular NGOs and faith-based organizations. Quite a number of them have a responsibility. We belong to a constituency. For example, I represent over 500 Islamic faith-based organizations in Lagos State. So you could imagine if I have access to such organizations with thousands and millions of people behind me, if I present issues from the positive perspectives, it will go a long way in changing the orientation of our people and the way they look at issues and the way they analyze issues and then the way they jump to conclusion. But if I use it the other way around, it will also go a long way in only deepening the divide, which is already very manifest among our people. And of course, it will not take us to anywhere other than complete destructions. May I thank you very much for your listening audience. And once again, I want to thank ISEM for giving me the opportunity to contribute. Thank you.